registered nurse with Dr. Jeffrey Basal. I'm also certified in dermatology through the DNC. And today I'm going to talk to you about skin cancer, how to prevent it, and what can happen when you don't. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Now, skin cancer is the most common of all cancers, and it accounts for nearly half of all cancers in the United States. I'm talking, take breast cancer, prostate cancer, any cancer that you can think of, lump it into one. Skin cancer accounts for half of that. So it is a very common thing. Now, some of these skin cancers, these are the type that aren't as dangerous. These type are actually very treatable if caught early enough, but they can be extremely destructive if you let them go too far. And they can be deadly. And the first one is basal cell carcinoma, and the second one is squamous cell carcinoma. Now, basal cell carcinoma is the most common of skin cancers that you're going to find. A lot of times you see them on the nose. Females, you see a lot of them on the legs because like to wear dresses, skirts, and also on the V-neck area of females. For men, a lot of times you see them on the backs because if they're outside working, a lot of times the first thing they do when they get hot is they take that shirt off and they don't put any sunscreen on. Now, basal cell carcinomas are really easy to treat if they're caught early. Now, squamous cell carcinomas, those are also really easy to treat if they're caught early. The little difference with that is that those can spread to other areas of the skin. Basal cells, on the other hand, those don't spread. They just continue to grow and grow and grow. And when they grow, it takes decades. It takes a lot of neglect to see one get to an extremely destructive point, but it happens every day, and we see it a lot. Now, these are some different pictures. I know you're eating, and so if you don't want to look at them, I understand. And there's one that's even worse, so I'll warn you before I pop it up. But these on this side are basal cells, and the other side are squamous cells. You can see how different they can look, but they're the same thing. The one on the top there is kind of crusty. The one on the bottom, though, is real small, and it's translucent. You can almost see through it. It kind of looks like a fleshy mole. But you can tell when you get real close to them and you kind of apply some pressure, they kind of look a little see-through. Sometimes there's little blood vessels running through them. Now, basal cells, one of the tail signs that you've got something going on is that they bleed real easy, or it's a pimple that just doesn't heal. The other thing too is sometimes they can get itchy or painful. Anytime that we have a patient say anything about, well, it's been itchy and it bleeds real easy, you know, when I wash my face, it just bleeds. That's like instantly like, oh, that's a basal cell. Squamous cell can act the same way. The difference is, as you can tell, it kind of looks a little bit more crusty and a little bit more eroded. The one on the ear, that one's what we call an ulcerating squamous cell. It's kind of, instead of growing down into the skin, it's growing up. And you see the one on the top more often than you do see the one on the bottom. The ears are a real common spot for those squamous cells because a lot of times people don't think to protect their ears. Men are extremely notorious for getting squamous cells on their ears. Females that have had long hair for the majority of their life, your hair, you may not think about it, but your hair actually is protecting your ears quite a bit. But you know, the trend, a lot of females are cutting their hair short, and therefore their ears are not being protected anymore. So it's really important to keep that in mind. Now, these are 3 different types of other skin cancers that can be deadly. Melanoma is probably one that's probably the most heard of in regards to a dangerous skin cancer. That is the type that shows up usually as a dark mole. And it can be very, very lethal, and it can be super, super sneaky. Sometimes all you see is just a pinpoint of a mole, and you just don't know if it is a melanoma until it's taken off. Now, a keratoacanthoma is a little different. That one is more destructive really on the surface of the skin. These things can get huge in a hurry. They are a mix between a squamous cell skin cancer and a wart. The wart factor causes these things to grow like this. They can go from the size of the end of a pencil eraser to the size of a $50 in a matter of a week. They are massive and they grow fast. The Merkel cell carcinoma, that one is even more deadly than melanoma in a lot of opinions of dermatologists because it is so sneaky by the time that it is caught, it's too late. That one can look like just a little red pimple that just never goes away, and it can be tiny. In all the years that the dermatologist I work for, Dr. Jeffrey Basal, that he's been a dermatologist, he's only found one. They are super, super rare, but they are very deadly because they are so sneaky and they're quiet. They don't really itch, they're not painful. Sometimes they'll bleed. A lot of times they're found just on a whim. A dermatologist will see it and go, that looks kind of funny, how long has that been there? And anytime someone says it's been there for, say, a little over a month, they say it's been there for more than a month, we usually just take it off just to be sure, because you just don't know. Now the two on the side here are the melanoma in situ. In situ means this just at the surface of the skin. If you're going to catch a melanoma, this is the stage that you want to catch it in. Very easy to treat, hasn't spread very far within the skin, so therefore it hasn't gotten to the lymph nodes, it hasn't gotten to the bloodstream. So this is definitely the stage you want to catch a melanoma in. Now on the top, that is a Merkel cell. That's how sneaky they can be. That's just a little red dot on a finger. Extremely sneaky, and that one was a fatal case. Now the keratoacanthoma, that thing grew in a matter of a week. It was nothing to that in a week. They look like little volcanoes, and they're extremely destructive because they grow so fast. All that skin there is no good anymore. So you have to remove it, and you have to get all of that basically necrotic cancerous skin out, and it leaves you with a hole in your nose. So we have to do a repair, and we have to create a flap. So we had to borrow some skin from the patient's cheek and rotate it into that hole. And luckily the face heals really, really well. And the dermatologist that I work for does a really good job with reconstruction. That's kind of a nice thing that we can pride ourselves on, is we don't have to refer our patients out, send them home with a massive hole in their face, and they have to wait a couple weeks before they can get it to the plastic surgeon. The dermatologist I work for will just get it done. And it heals up really nicely. Now there are different risk factors. Risk factors for all skin cancers are the same. Unprotected or excessive exposure to UVA and or UVB light. So sunlight and tanning foods are what's going to cause that. Pale complexion. If you have difficulty tanning, you easily sunburn, or basically you don't tan, period. Red or blonde hair and blue eyes puts you at a much higher risk for getting sunburns, and that puts you at a higher risk for getting those skin cancers later in life. A lot of people like to ask, what does your hair color have to do with anything? Well, if you have blonde or red hair, you lack a level of melanin within your skin, and that is what protects your skin from those UVA and UVB rays. So if you have darker hair, that means you do have a little bit higher level that if you notice, you tan a little easier than someone who has blonde hair. That would be why. That melanin creates that protection from those rays. Blonde hair and red hair people just don't have that protection, and that's what puts them at that higher risk. Now, you or other members of your family have had skin cancers. It's kind of a nature-nurture debate in regards to how much genetics really plays in that. Now, if you have parents that have had skin cancers treated, that's from the sun that they saw as a child and a young adult. Any damage that you're going to have to your skin when you get older is from sun exposure that you had when you were a child. We're talking 6, 10, 14. It doesn't show up till later. That's why it is extremely important to protect children and teenagers and young adults, because you are not going to see those damaging effects until you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s. Luckily, if you see them when you're in your 20s, that's pretty sad. And we just had a melanoma patient who was 25. We've had 2 in the last month, and that's just sad. So, with family members, if your parents have had skin cancers, odds are they were outside, you were outside with them. So it's kind of a nurture thing in that aspect. You spent time with your parents. If they like to be outside, you were probably outside with them. So you were getting that same level of UV exposure that they were. Now on the nature side of it, there is a genetic disposition in regards to melanomas. those do have a genetic disposition to them. If your parents like to grow dysplastic moles, or what we call funny-looking moles, they're either darker or they are funny shaped. There is a genetic disposition in regards to what kind of moles you would like to grow. Now, the more moles that you grow that are darker and kind of funny shaped, your risk for melanoma does increase a tad. Not a lot, but it does increase. Now, what really increases your risk for a melanoma is a sunburn. One blistering sunburn can double your risk for a melanoma, just one. Now, the multiple or unusual moles, those are those dysplastic moles that I was just talking about. Not only do they increase your risk for a melanoma, but they can also make it harder to spot a melanoma. So if you're looking at your body and you typically grow these funny-looking moles, we always say look for the ugly duckling, the one that sticks out. So if you're looking at your body and you have all of these moles that are funny-looking, it's going to be really hard to catch that one that really truly is something compared to all the other ones that are normal. So if you ever have one that your eyes just always catch, you don't know why. You can't pinpoint what's different about it compared to your other ones, just have it taken off. Because you'd be surprised how many times we've had patients say, I don't know, I just keep seeing it, I just want it off. And it ends up being something, whether it be a basal cell, melanoma, squamous cell, but it doesn't look any different than the other stuff they grow. And like I said, severe sunburns in the past, one can increase your risk by 50% in regards to a melanoma, whether that's a sunburn from a tanning bed, whether it's a sunburn from the sun. Tanning beds are 10 times stronger than the sun alone. They're very dangerous. And just until recently, the FDA had them on the same level as tongue dispensers and cotton swabs in regards to how dangerous the UV lights were. And thankfully, they've upped that. Now, when you're looking for melanomas, these are what the ABCs, if you've heard of them, this is what it pertains to. We've got the asymmetry, border irregularity, color, diameter, and then they added one, evolution. And I'm pretty sure they'll probably add more as it goes along. But the asymmetry basically is if I draw a line through any mole, it should look the same on both sides. This one obviously doesn't. This is what we call the fried egg appearance. That darker spot kind of looks like yolk. Anything that looks like that, just off, take it off. Border irregularity, really jagged borders. Not all of your moles are going to be completely perfect. They're just not. But that one obviously has some issues. Now color, I don't get super hung up on it because we have caught melanomas that were pink. I mean, that's rare too, but don't ever rule out a mole just because it's not black. But definitely black is something that I would have taken off. If I found something anywhere on anybody, I would say go in, have it taken off. The only way to know for sure is to have that done. And then 1/4 inch in diameter. If you take the end of a pencil eraser, stick it over that mole, if you can still see the outsides of that mole, it's larger than 1/4 inch. And that's one, typically, the reason why we talk about how large it is because it ties into this evolution. This mole grew, obviously, but if you notice, this is the same mole. So a lot of times people won't notice that it's gotten any bigger, especially if it's somewhere that they see every day. For example, if it's anywhere on the face, the arms, the hands, you see your arms, your hands, your face every day. So you're not going to notice those subtle changes. So if anyone ever comes up to you and says, I don't remember that from last year or something, that's new. And you're like, no, I've had that for forever. Have it taken off because they have noticed that it's something new. You may not notice that. The other thing too is when you are doing self-exams, I don't suggest doing them any closer together than a month apart, just for that exact same reason. If you do them any closer, you're not going to notice those subtle changes. So if you've got someone at home that can take a look at your back, have them do it on a monthly basis. At the very least though, take a look at your birthday suit on your birthday. Do it at least once a year. Okay.
I think it's on the bottom.
Thank you. There we go. Okay. Now, if you are unfortunate enough to get a skin cancer, there are ways to treat it. Now, basal cells and squamous cells, if you catch them early enough, what we do in our office, if we catch them and they're just on the surface of the skin, you can have a basal cell and a squamous cell inside too as well. We numb those areas up with some lidocaine, just a little pinch and a burn with a needle, and then we just scrape that area off, just at the surface of the skin, no stitches or anything, and that's the end of that one. Really easy to treat if you catch them early. Now, if you don't catch them early, you have to have them excised because you have to get all those skin cancer cells out. You leave one skin cancer cell behind and it will just come back. And when they come back with a vengeance. And they are ugly. And they grow within the scar tissue. And when that happens, they're harder to treat. So when we do surgeries for these skin cancers, we take those out and we put a few stitches in. And Dr. Basal, we have our own lab. So our lab prepares that and he looks at it himself under the slide and he makes sure that those margins are clear. Now, if this is a skin cancer that has come back or if it's in a goofy spot, a lot of times skin cancers on the nose are really hard to treat because of the area. There's not a lot of skin there. They also can grow really funny on the nose because of the cartilage and they can get sclerosing, basically meaning that they grow little finger-like projections out into the skin. It's not just a nice, simple little ball of skin cancer. They get kind of funky. And a lot of times that happens when it's a returning skin cancer. So when that does happen, we do what's called a Mohs surgery. It's a specialized surgery where when a patient comes in, they come into our office, we numb them up. Everything is always done under local anesthetic. We just numb them up, take some tissue. While the patient's still there in our office, we can have the tissue processed, and Dr. Basal will look under the slide. That process allows him to look and see if the margins are clear. And if they're not, he knows exactly where there's still skin cancer cells left, and it gives him about how much to take so he can go back. The patient's still at the office, doesn't have to go home and then come back another day. So he goes and he takes more skin cancer cells out. Same process, takes it back, makes sure the margins are clear. We do that until the margins are completely clear. It is 99% effective. In the world of healthcare, nothing is 100%. So 99 is as close as you're gonna get. But Mohs, like I said, specialized in it. We don't do it terrible often because they do take a while. It can take up to 3 hours. If you've got a skin cancer that is really sclerosing, has a lot of these finger-like projections, I like to kind of call them icebergs. They're very unassuming on the surface, but once you start working on them, they're a lot bigger. Now this is an example of a Mohs surgery. This is a really typical one. And like I said, the nose is a really common spot that we do these. This is what will go around looking like this and not having things treated. This is a form of self-neglect, very much so. But it's also a warning that it can happen.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is that like painful? Did she have any sort of symptoms
She
with
said it
that?
was sore. I would imagine it was extremely painful, but she had an extremely high pain tolerance. She had to also, like shortly before that, she had broke her hip and laid her in her yard for hours before anyone came and got her, and she finally flagged someone down. I said, "Did anyone hear you yelling?" She goes, "Oh, I wasn't yelling." I'm like, okay. But she said it was sore. It was probably extremely painful, yeah. Now, these are some things that you need to keep in mind in regards to protecting yourself from the sun and keeping your skin nice and healthy. Avoiding the sun between 10 and 4. That's when the sun rays are at their strongest. I know it's tough to do that because that's the time that most people want to go out. And there are people that work outside. So if that's the case that you need to be outside, seek shade if you can. That's the best thing that you can do is seeking shade. Now, slipping on a shirt is also very important, but it's also very important what kind of shirt you wear. Cotton has an SPF of 4. It basically isn't doing you squat. You can get sunburnt through that cotton shirt, mainly because it's so loosely weaved There's also like the Under Armour, or they have those swim shirts. Those ones carry an SPF of like 50 because they're woven so much tighter together, and those UV rays can't get through. So those are really nice to have on hand, especially for small children. If you just can't get sunscreen on them, or you know you're not going to be able to reapply it every 2 hours, get one of those sun shirts. They do fantastic. I've got like 4 on hand. Slopping on sunscreen. That is one thing that a lot of people slack on because they don't want to reapply every 2 hours. They don't want to reapply after they get wet. One of the most important things that you can do, though, especially to the face, the ears, the arms, the hands, a lot of people don't think about the tops of your hands. Lots of skin cancers on the hands when you get older if you do not protect them. It also helps protect them from wrinkles, makes them keep them pretty. But when it comes to sunscreen, you want to make sure you're looking at your ingredients. Those spray ones, they're super convenient, but they're not helping you out much. They don't contain zinc oxide or titanium dioxide, and those are the key ingredients when it comes to your sunscreens. And yes, they're in there. So if you ever remember seeing those lifeguards with the white zinc oxide on their nose, they knew what they were doing. That stuff is great. Yeah, sometimes it can kind of leave that white kind of discoloration. The sensitive one, or the baby one that I handed out, that one is a lot lighter. That sport one is a lot thicker. So that's kind of the difference in those two. But there's also a really good over-the-counter sunscreen that is a lot lighter. It doesn't leave that white silvery discoloration like zinc oxide usually does, but it does contain it. It's Cetaphil, has a daily moisturizer that has that zinc oxide in it. But when it comes to just going and buying some over-the-counter, Banana Boat and Coppertone are the only ones that I have found that contain either one or the other or both. So just kind of keep that in mind. I went out and did the homework for everybody. So slapping on a hat is also very important too. Baseball caps are all right. They don't protect your ears, and they don't come out over your nose. You're still leaving that nose tip really exposed. And they do not protect your neck. A lot of people forget about the neck and the ears, and they pay for it later. And we've had patients come in that have lost their ears because there was just no other way around it. So putting on that hat, a wide brim straw hat, kind of can get a little bit sweaty, but if you're already wearing a baseball cap, there's no harm in putting a wide brim one on. Or those sun hats. Females like to wear those sun hats out while they're gardening. Those are great. Those protect you very, very well. Putting on sunglasses, also very important. A lot of people, I don't think, realize you can get melanoma on your retina. So it's very important to keep your eyes extremely protected. So if you ever go in to your optometrist and they dilate your eyes and they look back there just to double check everything, and they say, oh, you have a freckle on your eye. Yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. I have one on mine. It hasn't grown, hasn't changed in years, but it's something to be aware of. And because those are beyond hard to treat. You basically lose that eye if you do develop that melanoma on your eye. You can also get basal cell skin cancers on your eyelids. We treat those a lot. And if you don't catch those early enough, you can lose your eyelids. And that's really tough to deal with. That is really hard to treat cosmetically. And any melanomas on the face, head, anywhere are extremely dangerous because they have got such easy access to the brain. And that's really hard to treat once it's gotten that far. So make sure you're wearing your sunglasses as well. And most sunglasses, I don't think I've ever seen one that didn't have the sticker saying that it had the UV protection on it, but keep an eye out, make sure it does. And the other thing is even if it's cloudy outside, don't think you're safe. You can get sunburned through the clouds. I learned that in high school on a very cloudy track day. Didn't think I needed to put anything on. I was burnt to a crisp. Those UV rays can extend through those clouds. And tanning beds are very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Kind of a nice little ending here. Remember, no tan is a safe tan. Base tans, oh my gosh, the worst misconception ever. Base tans, you're kind of lying to yourself in a sense. Any tan is dangerous. When you tan, you're damaging those skin cells. Those damaged skin cells is what leads to those skin cancers. So those base tans are basically just making you think, oh, I can go outside, I don't need protection because I'm not going to burn and I'm going to be fine. No, you're still damaging your skin. Pale is very pretty. I love that that's changing now. There's nothing wrong with a tan from a can. Spray tans are fine. Those do not hurt you. They are fine. And they've gotten way, way better. I remember when I was in school and you were basically an Oompa Loompa and you smelled. And skin cancer does not discriminate. Who in here knows who Bob Marley is? I would assume everybody. He died from melanoma. He had a spot on his toenail, and he thought it was an old soccer injury. It was a melanoma, and that is how he passed away. So no matter what race you are, what color of your skin, you can still get melanomas and skin cancers. Now, for African Americans, where theirs show up, where you notice them, is in the nail beds, palms of the hands, and bottoms of the feet. And if sunscreen is a joke, then melanoma is the punchline. Very important to wear that sunscreen. You will not regret it. And if you know someone who wears it all the time and you don't wear it at all, your same age, 10 years from now, you're going to be wishing that you did wear it. It protects you from wrinkles. It protects you from sunspots. If you're looking from the cosmetic end of it, fine. I don't care. Whatever you have to do to put that sunscreen on, I do not care. If you're doing it for strictly cosmetic reasons, great. But make sure you're wearing that sunscreen and protecting your skin. Anyone have any questions?
Is the higher number on sunscreen better than, does it matter once you hit a certain level?
We don't get super hung up on the SPF. We are more into the actual ingredient in the sunscreen. 50 is good. Anything above 50 is squat. It really doesn't, anything above 50 doesn't do much for you. Zinc oxide and titanium dioxide ingredients are the best that you can do. And back to the spray, if that's all you want to put on, then do it. That's great. That's better than nothing, but it's definitely not the best thing out there. Any other questions?
Yeah, a lot of women's products say they have SPF, like moisturizers and makeup.
And makeup?
What do you think about that?
I think that's great. I think it's fantastic because without even thinking about it, when you put your makeup on in the morning, you're protecting your skin.
They're just as effective.
They are to an extent. I mean, most of the makeup's only got an SPF of about 15. I would suggest putting a moisturizer on, like Oil of Olay. I know that their daily moisturizer has SPF, but it does contain zinc oxide. Like I said, we don't get super caught up on the SPF. We get caught up on the ingredient. Even if your makeup has sunscreen in it, or not sunscreen, but SPF to it, make sure you're putting a daily moisturizer on that has some zinc oxide in it. And most of them do. So, but yeah, makeup does wonders. It's pretty interesting. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you. Okay.
One more question. How often do you suggest you come and see a professional?
You know, everybody's a little different. It depends on your risk factors. Getting a baseline look over and having a dermatologist give you a look over and kind of give you what your risk factors are. Like, for example, a person like me, I have a few darker, kind of funny looking moles, but I don't have a lot of them every 2 years. Someone who has had a melanoma, probably after their first diagnosis, you need to come in every 6 months, and then just basically to get those funny looking ones off. And then once you're kind of at a point where you feel comfortable and then you haven't had anything come back, your melanoma's gone, then yearly. But if we've got someone that comes in, we do have quite a few patients that come in on a 3 to 4 month basis just because they are covered in squamous cell and basal cell skin cancers. And you just can't treat them all in one visit. And you have to give them time to heal. And they'll just continue to pop up. Like, for example, if I got sunburned as a kid, I mean, I don't think I know anyone that hasn't at least had one. If I went and sat in a room today with no windows, no way to get out, and I didn't see a lick of sunlight for the rest of my life, I would still have skin cancers pop up probably later in life. So even if you treat everything that's visible, that doesn't mean that nothing's going to show up later. So that's why we have those patients show up as often as they do.
Yeah. Do age spots or
you know, the spots that you get on your skin as you age, does that have any correlation or anything that we should be doing to watch?
Sometimes they can. You still need to look at it. Don't ever rule out a mole just because you've had it for forever. A melanoma is just as likely to pop up in an old mole than it is to just show up brand new. So never rule anything out just because you've had it for your whole life. So sunspots, they're usually the flat, light brown spots. They're typically nothing to worry about, but if you do ever notice a darker spot showing up in the middle of them, or that one changing drastically, then yeah. And it's, like I said, it may sound like it's not pleasant to have them taken off, but it's really not too bad. Like I said, we just numb up the area and we scrape it off. No stitches. It's just like you fall and scrape your knee on the concrete. That's as extensive as it is, just to have something tested. Now, if it came back as something being treated, that's another question. But just to have it tested really isn't too bad. All right. Yeah.
You talked about numbing it up and scraping it. I've heard others talk about freezing it.
That's when you have, and that is something I did not touch on. Freezing we reserve just for precancers, actinic keratoses. Those are what can kind of signal that you might possibly have a squamous cell carcinoma pop up in that spot later in life. Now, if you treat those actinic keratoses, you eliminate that possibility of that squamous cell appearing later on. Now, when we have actinic keratoses, if we catch them early enough, then we can just freeze them. But freezing typically just makes an already established skin cancer really mad. So, they just get pretty ugly at that point. So for the most part, we don't freeze skin cancers. We just freeze the actinic keratoses or the precancers. So those, since we're kind of talking about it, those kind of feel like sandpapery spots. They may look like a little spot of dry skin, but they feel a little different. They feel a little bit rougher. Those are precancers. Sometimes they kind of behave in the fact that they peel off and they just keep coming right back in the exact same spot. They just never go away. The sooner you treat those, the easier. Just a simple freeze. But if you let those go too long, either they have to be scraped off or they will turn into a skin cancer. But they're a nice warning. Yeah.
My daughter's had a few in her scalp. Mm-hmm. How common is that? Because she has had some pretty big ones have to be removed.
Like cysts or moles. Sometimes it plays a genetic factor. We like to develop our mole patterns from somewhere in our family, whether it's our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, sorry. Moles on the scalp are pretty common, and a lot of times if they've had them for their whole life though, there's a special term for it, but there are some on the scalp that can turn into skin cancers later in life, but that's usually if they have had them from like birth on up. So, and sometimes those can grow pretty deep. But yeah, the ones on the scalp can be common. It also kind of depends on what type of mole. There are different kinds. Anybody else? All right, well thank you very much. I appreciate it.